Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We talk about the Beatles exclusively here. Anything about the group years, the solo years. We interview authors, we interview podcasters, we interview musicians, we interview everybody. And this time we have Tony Kishman with us. He is in a Paul McCartney tribute band called Live and Let Die, the music of Paul McCartney. It's been going for quite a long time. He's going to talk about his whole history performing Beatles music and Paul McCartney music, but I've known the name for several years. Finally, we come face to face. Welcome, Tony, to the channel.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, Ken.
Yeah, talk about how everything started, how you became a tribute artist to Paul, and was it always Paul, or was it a Beatle band, or did you always mix Paul's solo music with the Beatles? How did all that start?
Well, for me, it started, I wasn't actually looking for it. It was the late 70s, and there was a show on Broadway called Beatlemania.
Sure.
And the producers of the show were looking for people that looked like John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And I had seen the ads on Time magazine. I saw like this group playing Beatlemania. I was thinking, well, what's that? And I never once thought of it as something I would do because I was in a bar band. I
Mm.
was playing, Peter Frampton and, Bad Company and all this stuff. And I was actually a lead guitarist in this band. And my biggest claim to fame then was to play songs by Wishbone Ash. And I was thinking, wow, this is really cool. I'm playing in a bar band. I'm playing, Wishbone Ash, and nobody knew that Wishbone Ash was, a classic rock band. They were just a band that we were playing, and it was really cool because we found this undiscovered band. So I had a good time playing this music, and one day my phone rings, and and it was somebody saying, "We understand that you can play Paul McCartney." Hang on, let me shut my phone off. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And so I thought, well, wait a minute. Paul McCartney, I don't know anything about that. So I mean, why would you call me? And they said, well, no, listen, we saw you in the club Smoky Stovers, and this agent told us that you look like him and you can play. I mean, you can sound like him vocally. And I said, really? And so I said, well, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, I better audition for this show because
Uh,
I had heard about Beatlemania and I knew it was a Broadway show and I knew it was better than what I was doing in this bar band. So I ended up auditioning. I asked them, what songs do I need to play and sing? They said you need to play piano, you need to play bass, and you need to play guitar. And just three songs, and that'll give us an idea of if you can handle the show. So I went ahead and learned "Can't Buy Me Love." I learned "Hey Jude," and I learned "Yesterday." And I worked hard on those songs because I wasn't really a piano player. I was more a lead guitarist. So I worked the songs up and I studied them and I wood shedded, and then I auditioned in Los Angeles at SIR Studios. And when I went in there, I was so nervous. I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! Oh my God, blah blah blah." So I got up and sang. Okay, he goes, "What song do you want to start with?" And I said, "Well, how about Can't Buy Me Love?" So they go, "Okay." So there was three other guys on the stage, three other Beatles. And they just said, "Go for it." So I came, "Okay, buy me love," and I started singing it, and I was so nervous I had to stop. And I said, hold it, guys. I'm sorry, but and I was like, I was 21 years old or 20 years old, something like that. So I was just a kid, really. And so I started the song again, and I got through the whole song. And then the musical director said, he goes, "Why don't you go to the piano and try Hey Jude?" So I did. I went over to the piano. I sang about maybe a verse or two, And then he goes, okay, let's hear you play guitar. So I sat down and played guitar for Yesterday. And he took me aside after and he said, let's go out. We'll take a walk. Let me talk to you. And he said, you could be in this show if you want to. He goes, you look the part, you've got the voice, you've got the musical talent, you're the right body type, you're the right height, you're the right everything. Just have to work on the songs. So I did. I worked on the songs. I spent a month, working the whole show. There was 29 songs in the show, from "Wanna Hold Your Hand" to "Helter Skelter" to "Let It Be," everything. So I ended up, learning pretty much the show, and I went back in and I auditioned again. And they said to me, "You're close. You're looking good. You're still not there yet." I auditioned 10 times. I mean, at least 10 times I went in there. And one day I was home, I was in Los Angeles, and the phone rang, and I got a call from the director, and they said, "Hey, listen, you're on the payroll. Come on down tomorrow. You're in the show." So
Wow.
I like stunned. I was so excited that I achieved this Broadway show. So that's what led me into being Paul in a production. It wasn't that I sat around wondering, hey, listen, well, who could I play or whatever? Because there was no such thing as tribute bands back in the 70s.
Right.
If you think about it,
Yeah. Were you
you know,
much of a Beatle fan at that point?
well, yeah, I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, like all of America, and I fell in love with them. I thought they were the most amazing thing in the world, and I never thought anything of it because I was a kid, I was a child when I saw them. But as years went on, I think I might have been 16 when I was really thinking, wow, the Beatles are a big deal. Wow, this is cool. But it was Beatlemania that really took me down that road, and I started really listening to who sang what. Like, wait a minute, that's McCartney singing that. Oh, wait, that's George. Okay, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And for many years, I never knew that for the benefit of Mr. Kite was John Lennon when it was. I thought it was George singing it. But I learned it was John. Stuff like that. So it was a real fun journey learning really what was played and who did Eleanor Rigby and what parts did Paul sing and all this stuff. And it was a real education being in that show. We toured all over the U.S. and we ended up in Canada. We went into Europe. We did all kinds of stuff. Ended up in London. So that was a real fun time being in London. You know,
It's pretty amazing. So I thought that Mitch Weissman became the Paul McCartney.
Mi- yeah, there was a couple of guys that were Pauls. We had Mitch was the first, and then there was other Pauls, and there was other Johns. There was about six active groups, and Mitch, I understudied Mitch, and then when Mitch didn't do the show, I took over and did the show. At one point, Mitch was, you know, he was spread a little bit thin because we were opening production on Broadway. There was one on the West Coast, and then there was one in Chicago.
Right.
And the Chicago production was me. There was no Mitch there, so that was my introduction to being the main guy, if you will. And then I ended up going to London, which was again myself. So all of the publicity that meant that the PR, the publicity, all of those things were done with this band, my group,
Hmm.
and, and that's when I ended up going on TV, doing promotions and things like that. You know,
So this stayed with you all this time, and from that moment after Beatlemania, did you decide you wanted to continue just being Paul?
well, that's the thing. When Beatlemania ended, and that was quite a journey because I met so many wonderful people in that show.
Right.
It was a 5-year run. It was like it went from actually it went from 78, 98 until 83. So when 83 came, Beatlemania closed. There was a couple of little spotty performances here and there, a couple of bus and truck visits and stuff. But it was the London show was the final show of Beatlemania, and that's where I met George Martin. He came to the show and he sat there like this, seventh row, looking at me. I'm going, wait a minute, this is horrible. George Martin is sitting there watching me do Paul McCartney. Oh my God. So, needless to say, that was a highlight. That was an amazing moment in time, knowing that the man that made this music, that sat behind the control panel and pushed the faders, was watching me perform as Paul McCartnney.
Did you
So
get to talk to him?
I was, I did. He came backstage,
Uh-huh.
and when somebody knocked at my at the dressing room door, and this is at the Astoria Theater in London, and I ended up saying, "Go away! I just embarrassed myself in front of George Martin," because I knew he was in the audience.
Uh-huh.
Meanwhile, it's him knocking. That's him at the door. I opened the door and I went, "Oh my God!" I said, "What would make? I mean, it's so great to see you." And I thought the first question was, "Why would you come see us? What provoked you, being the producer of the Beatles, to come see us?" And he said, "Well, quite honestly, I brought up my son. I wanted my son to see you and to see what it was like a little bit to see the Beatles." And I thought, wow, that's cool. I mean, great. And he said, and at times I drifted. It was really good. He goes, A1 performance. And he was really very complimentary. I was like, oh my God, I'm getting compliments from George Martin. So I immediately wanted to know if what he thought of my music, because right away I was a songwriter, trying to get a record deal and all this stuff. And long story short, I gave him a tape of my original songs. He said to me, "Come see me in my studio at Air Studios."
Wow.
He goes, give me a week, and I'll listen to your stuff, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I think. So I gave him a week, and I said, "Do you mind if I bring my camera?" He goes, "No, not at all." So I went to see him at Air Studios, and he showed me around. He showed me who he was recording at the time. He was doing Jeff Beck, and Blondie, and I don't know, some other, just all these big stars. This is Pete Townshend's rig right here. We're doing a recording with the Who, and blah blah blah. And I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. I'm standing in the, next to excellence here. And he goes, "No, about your tape." I'm going, "Oh boy, he's going to talk about my music. Great. And he goes, "I'm afraid I've got bad news." He says, I think your songs are great. They're very good. He said, "But," he goes, "I'm afraid I could never record you." And I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Well, you sound too much like Paul McCartney, and I already worked with him." So I was thinking, no, no, wait a minute. You see, you saw me in Beatlemania, and maybe you were influenced by. He goes, "I know what I hear." I'm going. I couldn't argue with him. So he passed on me as a solo artist. But I did remember the words, "You sound like Paul McCartney," and I thought to myself, well, if that's what I got out of this, then that's not a bad thing.
Right.
So for years, I kept thinking of those words.
When
But
you
it was fun to hear that.
when you listen to yourself sing, do you hear Paul in the voice? Let's just
You
say it's
know,
your own songs. Do you hear it?
not really, because I know me. I mean, I try to sound like Paul. I do. When there's certain little things that start a song, "I can wait another day,"
Uh-huh.
like that. Just try to find that moment, that timbre. And I think in my mind I'm sounding like him. But when I listen back to me, I go, oh, that's Tony, that's Tony, that's Tony, you know. But he would not even think of recording me. There's no thought of it. But I thought it was cool, that it was a positive thing because he was complimentary. It's complimentary. I mean, I'm playing Paul, and if I sound like him enough to George Martin, who worked with the Beatles for 10 years or whatever it was, I felt pretty good. It was a highlight.
Sure. So George Martin saw you in the
Yeah,
audience. I guess that was Giles with him.
it was.
Yeah.
So I think I influenced that kid. you know, by proxy of doing the show. But yeah, it was good that that happened and that I was the guy there that performed. You know.
So after that experience of being in Beatlemania, were you in
Hmm.
several different Beatles tribute bands that led to Live and Let Die, or was it all, pretty much you refined the group over the years of what you had and the act, or were they just different bands as you went along?
Yeah, Beatlemania closed, and it was a thing of we all kind of went our ways, the guys in the groups and whatnot. And I kept doing a Beatles show. I did my own Beatle band. We did a group called Twist and Shout, tribute to the Beatles. And then I did a show called, and still have done, the show Classical Mystery Tour,
Hmm,
which is with a full symphony orchestra.
okay.
And did that show for 20 some years, you know. And then about 2006, I think, I thought to myself, I've been doing Beatles and Beatles and Beatles for years, playing all over the world. What about a McCartney tribute? So I went and I auditioned as Paul in the Legends in Concert show, which was in Las Vegas. And I played Paul solo McCartney, where I only did about 6 songs in
Uh-huh.
front of a small little band. And I did that show for a while and ended up going to Hong Kong and playing and stuff. And I was thinking, this is really cool, but I should do a full show. So it was about 2006 when I put Live and Let Die together. So Live and Let Die, the music of Paul McCartney, was the second version of Live and Let Die, a symphonic tribute to Paul McCartney. And I did all the symphonies around the country. We played every orchestra, you know, Dallas, Jacksonville, wherever you name it, we played the show. And it was fun because we played all of his songs with a full orchestra behind us. And that's the video that I believe you saw,
Yeah.
where I actually put a 12-piece orchestra together and made that a staple of one of the shows we do, you know. And then after that run came, I did that show for probably 5 or 6 years. And then I thought, let's do the 5-piece like Paul does. So Paul is on stage with 5 people, including himself. And that was a staple for him for quite some time, you
Right.
know. So I thought, why don't we do the 5-piece show? And we've been doing the 5-piece show ever since. So it's fun to do because you got a great keyboard player, you got a good band, good solid drummer, you know, 2 guys on each side of me that sing and everybody. It's just similar to Paul, what he's doing now. And we can do any song. It's really cool. And it makes more sense for some of the venues that we're playing because they can't afford or put together a symphony. It's a little out of the league of, it's a lot of work to put, 19 people on stage.
Sure.
But it's fun to do either show we've been doing. So,
Now, I
yeah.
put in our description box, there's a link there for what you were just talking about. It's a 90-minute concert. You can see Tony with this band. And there are plenty of times when you look very much like Paul, and the expressions on your face sometimes are like Paul, but you don't try to talk like him in his accent, in his voice to the crowd, really. You don't make that effort.
Yeah.
one of the things that I do like, I mean, I don't really go for what they call the boots and suits bands. Everybody
Yeah,
can dress the way that they want to, but you dress kind of like what Paul does with a white dress shirt and dark
yeah,
pants, and all that.
yeah,
Pretty much what he does, what he's been doing for many years now. But
yeah,
all these years that you've been doing this particular band, it's very close. I was going to say this to what he does now, but what I was really pleasantly surprised with in watching this concert is you're doing some songs that he's never done live before, that we wish he
yeah,
would do live, like
yeah,
Lonely Nights and Uncle Albert
yeah.
and Halsey and even Martha, My Dear, So there's a great selection going from Beatles to Wings to solo. Does the set list change through the years? Do you make changes or do you kind of stick with the same thing?
Well, yes, we do change the show around quite a bit. In fact, every week there's 5 or 6 songs that we will switch, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, if I did a show and I didn't do Hey Jude, I think I'd get stoned by the rocks when they fly,
Yeah.
Hey, boo, he didn't do Hey Jude. But it's a thing of, yeah, there's those songs that we like to do, we have to do. If you're playing Paul McCartney and you don't sing Yesterday, then you got to do certain songs. But there's some great songs that we switch around. Yeah, like you mentioned, Uncle Albert, we do that song every show. We always do. We always love doing Golden Slumbers medley. That whole ending medley is fun. But yeah, there's different openers. If we've played a venue once, I go back and look at what we played, and I'll say, wait a minute, we opened with "Got to Get You Into My Life." Let's open with something else, or
Uh-huh.
whatever it may be. So I don't want the audience to go, wow, I know what he's going to play, because they don't. They don't know exactly.
Hmm.
So yeah, we do mix it up and we have fun doing it. And I have a master song list of probably about 75 songs that I've played in the show. And some of them are deep cuts. They're really cool. That people. You don't usually want to play a deep cut show all the songs, but it's nice to throw in one or two that people go, ah, that was great. I love that one. So, but yeah, we try to keep it good, interesting, you know, stuff like that. I'm not going to give away the show, by the way.
Well, just watch this particular show that's up, but then again, like you said, you make changes in the set list anyway. But I was
Yeah,
very pleased that you led off this concert with Venus and Mars Rock Show Jet,
yeah,
which my
yeah,
favorite concert of all time is seeing Wings in 1976.
yeah.
What songs are the most challenging to do for you? Are there any in particular?
Well, there are, and I love doing them.
Hmm,
And that's the thing. I like it. Lately, we're doing 1985,
cool.
and the challenge part of that is to just to make sure we've got those harmonies right, you know, and you want to make sure that you've got the groove right, and you want to make sure you got the arrangement right. But that's a challenge, that song. Of course, maybe I'm amazed is a vocal challenge.
Right.
Silly Love is another one. Silly Love Songs is one of those songs where, it sounds easy. If you make it sound easy, you're working your butt off. So that's but I like doing those kind of songs. I do, because I do want to do songs that Paul isn't playing in his concerts.
Right.
People will go to him and they'll say, oh, well, I've already seen it. Well, no, we're going to do songs that he doesn't actually play. And I know for a fact there's a good half the show we're doing he doesn't play. Uncle Albert he doesn't do Silly Love Songs. He doesn't do Listen to What the Man Said. He doesn't actually do Yesterday anymore. He doesn't do Long and Winding Road anymore. You know what I mean? So we like to do songs that people will say, "Oh, that was nice. He did this one or he did that one," you know. But the band is really good. So any song we do, those guys are there and they're solid, you know.
Yeah, it's especially nice when I heard Silly Love Songs, hearing an orchestra, just like on the
Oh,
record and the
oh
break.
yeah.
So yeah, and I've often wished that ever since 1976 he would bring it back, but also you
Hmm.
got to work on all those harmonies, which are not easy.
Yeah. 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 I mean, even a two-part harmony, if it's not on right, if it's not executed right, it's going to sound horrible. So it's all about the vocals. You know, I really believe that. When you get up there, you know, there could be things going wrong, but if you're singing that song, people are listening to that song. They're
Mhm.
listening to the vocal, you know, and I think that's a big part of McCartney because I saw him probably 10 times. And the first time I saw him, I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
And here he was, came out on stage, sang "Got to Get You Into My Life," and I thought, what am I to expect here? You know, I mean, I'm thinking I got to see what this is all about. What is this guy all about? You know, and he walked out on stage, and I remember it like it was yesterday. He goes on the mic and he goes, "Yeah," and he sings this note. He just goes, "Wow," and I'm going. I went, oh my God, now I know what this guy's all about. He's going to dazzle me all night. And his voice was like a fist punching you in the head. I was going, oh my God, this is why he is an icon. You know,
Hmm.
he his approach to each song is different. Every song he sang was different. You know, like when he did Lady Madonna, he was doing Elvis, you know. But when he's saying "Got to Get You," he was this or that, and or he was Little Richard, you know, or he was just so interesting that I couldn't believe it, you know. And every year that I've seen him, he may have gotten a little bit tireder, so to speak, but he still gets up there and just nails what he does, and he does it 3 hours. I mean, hats off to him, man. Hats hats off to him. You know,
With
he
a
will
rehearsal
he
before.
will. Oh yeah, yeah, and you know, and yeah. I mean, his ticket prices are amazing, but he puts on quite a show.
That,
You know.
have you ever tried since in the 70s being a big Wings fan, a lot of attention was given to Denny Lane and to Jimmy McCulloch. Do you ever mix their songs into the show since they were a big part of that period?
You know, actually, no. The closest we came to was you know doing something Denny Lane-ish
Hmm.
was Mulligan Tire. And we did Mulligan Tire when we were in Europe, and we did Mulligan Tire when we were in Canada. And that song just brought tears to people's eyes. It was something that I couldn't believe. Because in the States it wasn't as big of a hit. You know, I mean, still a very popular song, but Mulligan Tire in Europe, in Germany, I mean, people just tears are coming down. I'm thinking Mulligan Tire, and singing. I'm going. I can't imagine this, you know, because I just couldn't relate as much as like Hey Jude or Yesterday or Winding Road. I mean, Long and Winding Road still brings a tear to my eye.
Me too.
If I'm listening to that song on the radio, it's like, you know, many times I've been alone. And I think of my life. Everybody thinks of their life, you know. And but Mulligan Tire was the big one. And that was Denny Lane. Everybody knows he was the instrumental in that song, you know.
Oh, they
But
wrote
we
it
stick to
together.
Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But in Live and Let Die show, we stick to McCartney. I don't have a girl doing Linda. You know, we don't do that. I feel that it's just more. I guess, classier, just to present McCartney songs the best I can, you know, and with the best band I can work with, you know, and that's to me the key, because I'm not Paul McCartney, but I want to do his music justice,
Do
you
you
know.
do you think like Paul in the sense that, well, Mull of Kintyre was a big hit all over the world except the United States, and
Yeah,
he never performed it in the United States. But he plays it in Canada and he plays it in
yeah,
the UK, and there are a lot of American fans that wish he would play it in the United States. Do you think that way
yeah.
because it wasn't a hit here?
Well, I do. I always think of what would this audience want to hear. I mean, you think of the demographics of it. If you're playing a festival, you're going to want to lay out some more rocky songs, but you always want to, please that audience that is older now, you know, and I've got lots of fun jokes about it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't think that um, Mulligan Tire is not in our show, but it has been in certain key places in the world, so to speak. And but there were times when we play like a Beatle Fest show or whatever, and then that's people coming that want to hear anything McCartney's done,
Right.
So that audience, we would do Mulligan Tire. With that audience, we would do a little deeper cuts, and that's, I think, appropriately placed, if you will. You
Okay.
know,
Have you ever played the Beatles convention in Liverpool?
I have. I did I did that one in, I think it was 17 or 18. I worked with Lawrence Juber.
Nice.
Well, I had gotten a call from the people of that festival, and I'd never been to Liverpool. And the lady called me up and she said, Townie, we would like you to front the ex-members of Wings. And I'm going, what, what? What are you saying? So what we're gonna have Denny Lane, we're gonna have Lawrence Juber, we're gonna have Steve Holly, we're gonna have some of the horn section from Wings Over America, whatever, Howie Casey, and she rattled off a few others. And she goes, we want to do a show where it's called Beyond McCartney or something. I can't remember the name of it, but it was at the Beatle Fest in Liverpool, and it was at the Royal Theatre, and they wanted me to front the band, and they told me the songs I would be doing. Can I do it? And I said, I could. Can I do it? I will come there with bells on. I mean, of course I'll do it. So I got to play with ex members of Wings, and it was so much fun. We opened with "Got to Get You" with that big horn section, and the guys that were all playing with Wings, and um, we did Jet. We did Silly Love Songs. We did just some songs that those guys played back then. You know, and I'm trying to think of we did Mulligan Tire, and then we did, I think, 5 songs. That was it.
Yeah.
And it was just the funnest thing ever. Yeah, it was really good. I think we did Band on the Run. I'm not sure I remember what I did play, but yeah, it was cool. It was a really cool night, you know.
I would
And then
imagine.
I bounced around.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
yeah,
probably
yeah.
with those members of Wings, you probably did the orchestra theme.
Oh yeah, yeah. We did do that one. Now that I think of it, that was really cool. We did Rockestra. We did. I think we did Live and Let Die too. But it was about 6 songs, you know. And after we did that show, they asked me to sing a solo song from I think it was the new album. I'm not sure. I can't remember, but it was the song where he sang, uh, what was that called?
Queenie Eye?
Something about Dick. No, it was just an acoustic number, just him and an acoustic.
Early
I'm
days?
trying to think of it. Early days, early days, and it's on YouTube. I've got if you look up YouTube, Tony Kishman, early days, you'll see me doing that song.
Okay.
And there was a big video screen of McCartney and his growing up with the Beatles and all that. And I said, "Oh my God, you're going to have me sing this? This is amazing."
Uh,
So I had to learn those words, all of those lyrics, and I couldn't sing one of them for you right now, but it was the early days. Yeah. That was me in those early days, too amazing. But yeah, that was fun. The Liverpool thing was great. Yeah.
I have to comment about your voice. And when I watched this concert, I was blown away by how strong your vocals are. And
Oh,
you're doing some songs that
thank
are very tough to sing, that are up in a high register. What do
mhm.
you do to keep your voice so strong? Do you do exercises when you're not in concert? When you have days off? What do you do exactly?
Well, the day of the show, I don't speak. So when I wake up in the morning, I, like when you wake up and you go, mm, mm, I don't even do that. I'll just keep my voice completely clear. And then after about an hour or two, maybe three, I'll start to just hum, like with a and just very lightly. And that's what I do during a show on the day of the show. And
Right,
then of course, then I warm up, and then I start, I start giving, doing the warm ups.
right,
But days before the show, I sing, and I sing just anything. I'm always singing something. And if I don't sing, I suffer. So, and another thing too is important to be doing shows. So if you're doing a lot of shows in the month, you're going to be okay. So that's the key. I think that's what works for me, you know. And but yeah, and I gargle with salt water to clear the throat, and you got to baby it. You baby yourself.
right,
That's it. And I don't smoke and I don't drink. Those would be killer that for singers. You just don't do that.
right. Okay.
And yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
I know in the case of Paul, most of the time these days, he spaces out his concerts. He doesn't do 2 nights in a row. So do you try to
Yeah.
adhere to that at all, or are there plenty of times when you're playing several days in a row?
Well, there are. And you look at the calendar, and somebody calls you and says, "Can you do a symphony show on Sunday right after your Saturday night show in, Long Island?"
Uh-huh.
And you say to yourself, "Yeah, I think I can do that. I think I can make that work." And you think about it and you know what's got to happen. But if it were a situation where you've already done a lot of singing and someone offers me to do a show, then I'd say I can't do that day. But if you want to do it in the following week or the next month, you do have to pace yourself, because
Right.
you're killing yourself if you don't, you know. So that's how I approach it, you
Yeah.
know.
I know that you said that, you've got to like you said, pace yourself, but you shouldn't do like two difficult songs in a row to sing. You do like an easy one, then a more difficult one, then go back to an easy one. I notice Paul does the same thing. And there are times like
Yeah,
when Paul tours, like when he's done say Two of Us, he'll sing the lower part and Abe
yeah,
Laboriel the higher part to give his voice more of a break so that he'll be stronger on the next song. That kind of thing.
yeah.
So you probably think the same way, right?
Well, there are moments in the show where I call it gang vocals, where you're singing "Carry That Weight."
Yeah.
Boy, you're gonna carry that weight. And we've got everybody singing that because it's a whole bunch of voices on the record. So what we do is we have a whole bunch of guys singing it, you know. And same with Hands Across the Water. Hands across the water. Everybody sing it. You
Right.
know, it's big. It's a big fat vocal out front. But yeah, I wouldn't put um, you know, two or three songs in a row that are really high register. I would give it a little bit of a pacing, you
Right.
know. Listen to What the Man Said is a perfect song for pacing yourself because it's any time, any day, and it's low, you know. And
Hmm.
then when you finally get to the chorus, it's a little bit easier because you've already done this low vocal, you know. And that's what I like about the music. I know what's going to do justice for my voice, yet it's a big, giant hit song, you know? So it's really cool. But we're just recently learning Coming Up. Now,
Uh,
that song is pretty cool. Now, we haven't learned it yet. We haven't brought it in the show, but it's really, I thought it was harder to sing than it is. And it's really not, you know? It's really a song where I can get behind it, you know. Um, so yeah, you just think about how to pace yourself, you know. And if you're gonna do Yesterday, don't do Helter Skelter right before it. You know,
uh,
on the song Helter Skelter, Yesterday, no, you don't do that, you know. I like to do the song Something ukulele style, you know. And that to me is a fun one. And then do Yesterday because now I'm ready for that beautiful ballad, you know. So I'm sure that people do that in other groups and stuff. And to me, it's a good thing for pacing, you know.
right.
It's a good thing for yourself.
Have you found that there are certain songs, like I'll notice there are songs that are not that easy to play on bass. And I don't know how some bass players who have complicated lines can sing at the same time as playing their bass parts. Like, for example, when Paul has done Another Day in concert, he won't play the bass. He
No,
plays acoustic guitar to that. Or
there's a reason for that.
Lovely Rita, he plays acoustic guitar to. Is it easy for you to play these bass lines while singing at the same time? Is it just a matter of you've memorized these lines so well that you can do it in your sleep kind of thing? Or are you very conscious about what you're playing as you're singing at the same time?
Well, you know, there are some that are just engraved in my head, like, and I couldn't play it wrong if I tried, you know.
Oh,
But songs like Getting Better, hard to play because you do Getting Better all the time. It's that boom, 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 boom. Now, during that, you got to be singing, I have to admit, it's getting better. Boom, boom, boom. And it's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? You know. So it's really not a song I like doing, and we don't do it, by the way. But I have done it. We've done the whole Sergeant Pepper album live, and that was one that I dreaded because I knew that you had to play it that way. You know, I couldn't not play it that way. Another one that's very kind of touches on insanity is um, the she came in through the bathroom window,
hmm.
and then that gold when it comes into it's protected by a silver spoon. Boom, 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 boom. It's very very difficult. So, but that's another one. I've done it. I've gotten through it pretty well, but I don't like to do those songs because it's too much work in your head where you want to entertain the crowd. You know what I mean? You want to smile, you want to make people happy, and they go, "Oh my God, I thought I was watching Paul McCartney." But if you're staring at your bass guitar going, "Let's see, what the heck is that? Then to me, I think you're just defeating the purpose of the fun night, But those are hard songs. They
Oh,
are very hard to play.
I don't know how most bass players who sing handle it when they've got anything
Yeah.
complicated that they have to play.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
When it
They're
comes
tough to
to,
do. And
yeah, yeah. Did you want to say more about that?
oh no, yeah, they're just tough ones to do. But when you would shed them, and you got to play it, um, you got to play it.
Yeah. When it comes to having
Yeah.
orchestration, um, who does the score for that?
We have a wonderful relationship with a guy named Martin Herman, who he he transcribed every song from the record. So if you heard it on the record, he hears it and he writes it out. He was really good about all the orchestrations. Golden Slumbers and um, No More Lonely Nights,
Hmm.
Eleanor Rigby, all of these songs he wrote note for note, and he's quite an accomplished conductor. So he is the one that has conducted probably 99% of our shows, you know, but he's the guy behind that.
Yeah. How often do you do now a show with an orchestra?
We've been probably doing one every 2 months, something
Okay.
like that. They're not often, but we just did one in Ocean City, New Jersey. Um, it was a wonderful gig. It was, in fact, it was an older audience, and they asked me to tailor the songs to that audience. And I said to them, what what you're going to find out is that this audience is going to love every song that's on that we're going to play. They're going to love Got to Get You Into My Life. They're going to love Jet. They're going to love, you know, whatever song we play, they're going to love it. And there was a couple of moments when we did our show, we did our sound check and we did the rehearsal. And the buyer came up to me and he said, listen, you got to be careful because I don't want anybody walking out. I was going, walking out? And the place held 800 plus people,
Uh-huh.
and they had 800 people in there. And the show was so well received, and nobody walked out. And afterwards, I didn't go, see what I tell you, what I tell you. No, I didn't do that. After the show, I said, hey, congratulations tonight. Really good show tonight. Great orchestra. Way to go, guys. And nobody said anything about, you were right. No, you were right. I was saying,
Uh,
dude, I've been doing this for 40 some years. I know they're going to like it. This is their music.
right.
These people grew up with this in their radio. This is their life. Penny Lane is like, it's religious to hear that song on the radio. But anyway, so it's always fun to see people react. The reaction is always worth it.
Hmm.
That's what I love about it. Just a good reaction.
Have you noticed the widespread of ages that come to see the shows, or is it an older demographic?
Yes. Yes. Of course you're going to have the older people, you know. Um, I make jokes about one of the jokes I like to tell the audience is, it's been 4 or 5 years since we've been here. It's nice to be coming back. And I said, it's good to see that you're all dressed as your parents this time. And the crowd gets a laugh. But, it's silly things like that they remember, they want to hear. And, but I love some of my silly jokes that I look forward to that a lot, just to hear them react.
Hmm.
But yeah, every age group. I'm fortunate enough to have a 4.5-year-old, and I have a 31-year-old daughter.
Hmm.
31. 28, and 4.5. And the 4.5-year-old knows every song in this show. She sings "Let It Be." She sings "Yesterday." She sings everything I sing, and I'm going, wow. What do you want to be when you grow up? She says, well, I want to be a singer. And I'm like, oh boy, okay. But she's got the voice. She's got a
Okay.
good voice.
Maybe she'll be part of your act.
You never know. Maybe not. I don't know. She's going to have to learn how to play drums or guitar or something.
The
So
whole
funny.
idea of doing the orchestra, and when I say orchestra, it's with horns too, just so everyone knows. Isn't that a little
Hmm.
complicated because won't that make the show more expensive to put together?
Well, it does, because you've got in our show we have 12 seats. They have woodwinds, strings, and we have horns. And they're right behind us. They're in sections, and it can bring the cost of the show up. But when you do that kind of a show, it really is really spectacular because you're hearing the depth of the string section. You still have keyboards doing strings, but you have the strings really playing, and you hear the attack of the string with the bow, and the same with horns. And when you play Lady Madonna and you've got a real saxophone blowing that solo,
Yep.
it's cool. It's just really cool, you know. So yeah, it's more expensive, but it's just a lot more fun in a bigger way.
Yeah, it's amazing what a keyboard can replicate in terms of sound, but there's nothing like the original instrument. No matter
Yeah,
what.
yeah.
One of the things Paul has done in recent years is bring back a horn section to his shows, and
Hmm.
that makes such a big difference, you know,
It's really cool.
on something like Let
Yeah.
It Go, which is such a great song live to do. How close do you want to be to the original recordings? Do you want everyone in your band to play exactly what the other Beatles played on Beatles songs, or the various members of Wings or the other musicians? Do you want it to be as close as possible, or do you give them a bit of free rein to play a little bit of what they want?
Well, in answer to the question, yes, they got to play what's on the record. That's the Bible. You
Right.
know, if somebody asks, "Hey, what should I do in on that piano part, or what should I play on that, whatever?" I say, well, listen, what Ringo do,
Hmm.
and then if you go from there, and then you say, but now you got Abe. So now Abe took that Ringo part and he made it Abe. But what we do is we try to always refer to the original recording. And then, McCartney is performing live so much now that you can't ignore what he's doing to some of the live songs. Like when he does, to see a perfect example would be Band on the Run. You
Hmm.
know, a Band on the Run, there's certain bass parts where he played it, very, very simple on the record. And then when he plays it live, he embellishes it a little bit. And it's really good. It's okay. And it's not getting in the way of the structure of the song. So if I were to do that, it wouldn't take away from the song, I don't think, because he's doing, bum, 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 bum
Hmm.
live. Whereas studio, he just goes boom, boom, boom. Very simple, you know. So it's just this, it's that silly stuff, you know. But yeah, I like to stick to the record because that's what people remember. That's the main. Of course, I never change lyrics and I never change the melody. You always want to keep the melody exactly what he wrote. I may sing it a little different if there's an embellished part, like the end of Hey Jude when he's screaming and doing all that stuff. I used to do it note for note the same way he did it, all 10 minutes of it. But I later found out that it wasn't really necessary to do all of those little scat singing bits. I
Hmm.
think I do the main ones, and then I get right to the audience participation. I find it's more fun that way. You know, I don't think people are sitting there going, I wonder if he's going to scream right here. No, I don't think so. you know, but they do want to hear those scats in Maybe I'm Amazed. If you don't sing Maybe I'm Amazed the way he did it,
Uh-huh.
then don't play the song. Yeah, just don't play it.
Well, there's the
That's how I
studio
feel.
version, there's the studio version, and then there's the Wings Over
Yes,
version. And to some people
right.
prefer the live one more than the studio. I love both.
Yeah.
I prefer
See,
the
now that's so. Which one is your favorite?
studio.
Which one? Studio version. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a little different tempo. It's a little faster, and he goes up to the high F. Never help
Right.
me, in that bit. And if you don't hit that note, then don't play Paul. Just don't play him. Just go do something else.
Yeah.
If you don't sing those bits the way he did it, then, and I really try to make that happen, unless there's something really going wrong, I like to make those things happen. You know, to me, that's what makes it a really good quality production. Everybody doing their role, everybody has a job to do. It's modular, you know, the drummer's doing what he's got to do, the guitar player's doing what he's got to do, and I've got to do what I do, and it fits. Everybody fits, and it's great. It's really good. And when it's working like that, it's a real good feeling on stage. Like when you're really nailing Band on the Run, or if you're really nailing Junior's Farm or whatever the song
Right.
is, you know it. You can tell, it. So that's the fun part of the show.
Yeah. Couple more questions. Um, you talked about how you like doing songs that Paul hasn't done live before that you won't see him do. How much of an influence are his shows these days with what he does do? Because, like you said, you do perform something on ukulele. So that's
Yeah,
George. Does the
yeah.
current shows influence what you do?
To a certain degree, yeah, because I think that I like to learn something from what he's doing now, because I want to know what things to look forward to down the road. And what I took away from the last show he did, I saw him in where the heck did I see him? 24 was it? Uh, I believe we were in. Well, I saw him in Syracuse, but that's a funny story about Syracuse. But he did what he did in Syracuse blew me away because he sang those songs. He did Maybe I'm Amazed, and he did every vocal the way he should have, you
Hmm.
know. And I was impressed. I was very impressed. And you live and learn. You see his shows, and then you learn something. So even if it's three or four things that you go, hey, that was a neat way he did that. And one thing I learned about Paul McCartney that most people don't really think about, and that is he never turns around and shows his butt to the crowd. He never does that. He never turns around and talks to somebody. He may glance at the drummer
Yeah.
and go like this, but he's back in front. He never turns around and stands there and scratches his head. What are we all doing today? Never, never, never have you seen him do that. And if he has done that, it's so quick that it's like that. So I learned that I don't turn around unless I'm picking up a bass and I hand it to my guitarist and my guitarist hands it to me.
Mhm.
Or if I say acoustic, we're going to do Yesterday, I take my bass and set it down, but I'm still looking out front. And then I get a guitar from my guitarist. So
Uh-huh.
now we're not doing the plumber's crack and the whole bit. You know what I mean? We don't do any of that. We're professional.
Uh-huh.
And I learned. by watching Paul McCartney. And I was thinking, those are the little things that I like to take away from seeing him live, not to mention his amazing, uh, catalog that he brings on pretty much every time I've seen him. He's changed it up. He's done, you know, different stuff. He's added at least 4 or 5 new songs to the show. But I do learn a lot of things about how he stands there and his presence.
Hmm.
And it's funny, I had compliments from that, Ken. People will say, I was looking at you and I was second row and I could have sworn you were Paul McCartney. It was him up there. And I'm going, thank you. Thank you, because it's a tribute to him, you know.
Yeah.
If they said to me, you didn't really remind me of Paul McCartney and you didn't act like him, and yeah, quite honestly, you didn't sound like him. I don't want to hear those things.
You,
You
you
know?
do you do move around the stage like he would. But
Well, yeah,
I will correct you in one thing. When he did And I Love Her in concert, he turned his back
yeah.
to the audience and he shaked his bum a few times.
Okay, so there
Okay,
you
that's
go.
about it.
But it was by design. It was by design.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell
But
me a little bit about the musicians in your band because one of the musicians I happen to know in John Murjavi, and a lot of Beatle fans will be familiar with him because if you go to the Fest for Beatle fans, he's part of the band Liverpool. That's their house band. He's the George guy in the group, and he's also in the power pop band The Weaklings. He is Rocky Weakling.
yes,
So he's in your
yes.
band as well, and he's an amazing, guitar player, and he plays the sitar on stage when I've seen him in Liverpool. So, yeah, tell me about him and
Wow.
the other
I know.
musicians.
Well, great friend, good guy, always fun to be. The hang is great with John. I've known him for I hate to say it, probably since the day one. He was day one with me. Probably 2005 or something. I've known him since, and so I've known him about 20 years, and he's been in this band that long. And there are times when he has to bow out and do another gig,
Hmm.
but he has been 99% on this stage. And he's just a great guy, great musician. You know, he puts fires out like that. He knows exactly what to do when it comes to, you know, the mechanics, the mechanism of getting to a show. And I'll call him up and say, hey, we're going to be in this city. What do you think we should do when we blah blah blah? And he's got great ideas. He's very smart and just a great guy. I mean, his musicianship stands for itself. It speaks for itself.
Hmm.
And but yeah, he's just a just a great guy.
Every time I've seen him live, he just impresses me more. And in the video that you posted, the 1.5 hour concert, when you did No More Lonely Nights, he just nails the David Gilmour solo there.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know. And lately what we've done is added the ending solo. So when we go at the end of No More Lonely Nights, then it goes to that solo, and he does that elongated, beautiful
Right.
solo, embellishing a little bit on his own, flavor of it, but it's that tone and that quality of David Gilmour.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just spectacular working with that guy. He makes the show a better show,
Hmm.
no doubt. Um, yeah, but the other guys in the show also, our drummer, Brad Swigert from Dallas. Actually, he's from Arlington, Texas, but he's the Dallas guy. Um, on and he started with me about 8 years ago, and he's like his drumming is so solid that I don't even think about the song. I don't think about the bass parts. I don't think of anything other than entertaining the crowd because
Hmm.
he's got the beat and he drives the songs so well that I don't know how I could do it without him. just one of the greatest drummers I've ever worked with,
Hmm.
and a sweetheart of a guy. You know, backstage we have fun. He's hilarious. You know, so good guy. And our guitarist, the other guitarist we have is Chris Holt.
Right.
Chris is now working with the Eagles, and Chris has been with Don Henley for years, and he just got recently hired by the Eagles to do all the Sphere shows, and he's just a talent that you know, I'm so lucky to have. You know, Chris is great.
Hmm.
There's other guys now that are coming in and out of the show. We have Andrew Lubman on keyboards.
He's
I've also been working
um,
with, uh,
he's in
yeah,
Triple Shuffle, the Beatles
yeah,
tribute
yeah.
band.
Andrew's
Yeah.
plays in a lot of different groups.
Yeah.
Um, Andrew's just a talent. I mean, he can play anything, you know.
Hmm.
And he's a guy that, you know, you look back and he's playing keyboards and he's rocking and stuff, and he's standing up there doing it. He's just a real pleasure. There's been other players now that are coming in to do the keyboard role. We've had Mark Bonder, who's done an amazing job. We have a guy named Todd Rogers who plays keyboards for us,
Hmm.
and a new guy we have, Marty Hoskey, who's playing with us. So we got some really quality players doing keys, doing all them strings and horns and stuff. And but yeah, just great players. We have a guy named Paul Averett playing lead guitar. He fills in for John when
Okay.
John's not around. So we'll see him this weekend. And a guy named Jim Owen, who's playing keyboards and bass and guitar, stage left, who is multi-talented, great singer. So I'm just fortunate, you know. I've got so many good guys that have teamed up with me and have been in and out of the show. It's kind of like when Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull was asked, "How many people have ever been in Jethro Tull?" And he said something like, "We've had about 73 people that have been in and out of Jethro Tull." And going, "What? You're kidding me?" You know. So we've had about 9 or 10, okay, that have been in and out of Live and Let Die, and they're all just just killer players, you know.
And you were just alluding to a show that you're doing this Saturday, which I must let everyone know about. It's in West Haven, Connecticut, which fortunately for me is 10 minutes from my home right here.
Right.
And that's a Savin Rock Festival. So, and what time does that start? I think it's 7:30.
I think it starts at 8, but I'm not sure because there's always fluctuation with festivals. So it wouldn't hurt to be there at 7:30, but it's going to be a 90-minute show. We know that much.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
you make it a point to see Tony here with Live and Let Die, and you can spot me in the crowd, I'm sure. I'll be trying to sit as close up to the front as I can. And before we go, uh, do you know if Paul is aware of you?
I do know he is aware of me because there was a time when he invited me backstage. and I tell this story with a smile, but it's heartbreaking because it was at a time when I was in London. I didn't have a cell phone, and I was in the audience, and the roadie that got us tickets to the show said to me, "Don't even think about coming backstage because Paul doesn't have anyone, you know, come backstage."
Uh-huh.
I said, "Oh, that's fine. I just can't wait to see the show. I'm okay with that. No, don't worry about it." And so after the show was over, I left. And I went home in my flat in London
Uh-huh.
where I saw Paul for the first time. And the next day I go into the studio where the guy was that got me the tickets, and he said, he yells, he comes walking in, he throws his hands up, and he goes, "Where were you guys? Where did you go?" And I'm like, "Don't tell me what you're going to tell me." Paul came off stage and he said, "Tell the lads from Beatlemania to come backstage. I want to meet them." So this is what I did. You know, I said, no, no, you're kidding. And that was my close call of meeting Paul McCartney. But he knows of me because he was questioned when he did the Guinness Book World Records in London. They asked him a question: how do you feel about this guy, this lad that plays you in this Beatlemania show?
uh,
And he said, I find it weird that I'm being portrayed while I'm still alive. He said, but the guy that plays me is a good musician, and I wish him well. So that only meant that he either saw me on TV, or he may have come to the show and wore a hat and glasses. I don't know, but that was his comment to Guinness Book World Records when they were doing his one of his you know one of his productions, because he's still number one in the Guinness Book World Records, and
oh
even
yeah,
back then he
yeah.
was number one. So, but that's how I know that he saw me, and that was my close call of meeting Paul McCartney.
So if somebody mentioned Tony Kishman to him today, do you think he would even remember?
I'm not sure if that would do it. I think you'd have to say, "Do you remember the Beatlemania show in London? There was a guy named Tony Kishman that played you in the show.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah." But he would go, I remember. Yeah, he'd probably say, "I remember a little bit of that." Yes. He'd probably say something like that.
Well, Tony, this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And again, everyone, if you can see the show this Saturday in West Haven, Connecticut, whether you live in Connecticut or close to Connecticut, come and see Live and Let Die with Tony Kishman. And also, we'll include a link so you can see all the future dates that Tony will be doing with the band. Okay? What a joy this has been. Thank you, Tony, for being here. And
Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
thanks to all of you for watching this. And we'll see you next time. Take care.